Alhamdulillah wahdah wassalatu wassalamu ala man la nabiyya ba'dah ala man la nabiyya ba'dahu wa la ummata ba'da ummatihi wa la kitaba ba'da kitabih wa la shari'ata ba'da shari'atih. Amma ba'du, fa'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. قل سيروا في الأرض فانظروا كيف كان عاقبة الذين من قبلهم. صدق الله العظيم. Respected viewers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It is indeed an honor for me to present to you today a brief presentation on my recent trip to Uzbekistan. More than the country of Uzbekistan, we are looking at the very famous historical cities of Tashkent, Bukhara and Samarkand. And anyone with even a modicum of Islamic knowledge would know how these cities play a very significant role in Islamic history and Islamic civilization. From the very outset, let me say, my intention is not to speak about my trip per se, not to speak about my experiences and observation in terms of a personal interest in the matter, but more to learn from the lessons of history and to learn from the lessons of what this great region has left behind for us. And when we talk of Uzbekistan, I would just like to say that this is a land with great historical significance. And if you look at the map with regard to Uzbekistan, you will find some very, very important cities that are part and parcel of this country, the present day country. For example, you will find Bukhara, then you will find Samarkand, you will find Tashkent, and you will find Tirmidh. All these are significant Islamic historical cities within what is now known as the country of Uzbekistan. And I think maybe before we proceed, and you will find a small map of it, and in the map you will find the cities of Tashkent, Bukhara, Samarkand, right on the, and if you look very closely, you will find on the border of Afghanistan, the city of Tirmidh. And I will refer to it as we go along. Before we even go in with regard to it, let me give you a small background of how Islam was introduced and came to these Mubarak and blessed cities. The first thing was that Sahabah Ikram, after the celebrated khutbah known as the farewell sermon, Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam told the Sahaba that those who are present here, take my message and go out to the far corners of the earth and go and proclaim my message. And alhamdulillah, Sahaba went in different directions in the world with the intention of propagating the truth, the message of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the message of Islam. And two Sahaba, not only Sahaba, close relatives of our beloved Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam, were amongst the people who introduced Islam to this region. And who were they? One was Sa'id bin Uthman radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. Now you can imagine, this is the maternal grandson of our beloved Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the son of Ruqayya radiyallahu ta'ala anha, who came to this region to propagate and to introduce Islam. Another person, very significantly, was Quthum bin Abbas. Now, who is Quthum bin Abbas? The brother of Abdullah ibn Abbas, the son of Abbas radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, and the cousin of our beloved Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam. They were the ones who introduced Islam as a religion and the spiritual, so to say, conquering of the land. They were the ones who introduced Islam to Bukhara, Samarkand in particular. That was the spiritual coming of Islam into the region. And sometimes you think that where is Hijaz, where is Makkah and Medina, where is Bukhara, Samarkand? And today we find the qabr of close relatives of our beloved Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam in this faraway land. The cousin of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the grandson of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, buried in this land. Then together with that came another conquering of the land. And there's a very interesting incident with regard to the conquering of the land. Muslim bin Qutayba, the very famous Muslim conqueror, conquered Samarkand. And when he conquered Samarkand, he was in the neighboring regions. He laid siege, and then realizing that he has far more superior power and it will be able to invade Samarkand without any bloodshed and relative less loss of life, he conquered Samarkand, but not according to the normal norms of Islam of giving people the option before conquering. So he conquered Samarkand. The people who were the rulers of Samarkand before, the erstwhile rulers, they went to the Khalifa of the time in Damascus. That time was the time of the Umayyads. And who was the Khalifa of the Muslims at that time? None other than the famous and most pious ruler known as Umar II, Umar bin Abdul Aziz, rahmatullah alayh. They went to him and amazingly, they asked the people, where is your Khalifa? Where is your ruler? And they said, our ruler was just now here performing salat, he has gone home. The envoy is taken aback because not used to expecting or seeing that the ruler would mingle amongst people. And then when he went home, he saw Umar bin Abdul Aziz rahmatullah alayh doing the domestic chores. He was busy outside the house, fixing up certain aspects of his house. He's taken aback, that this is the ruler and the Khalifa who is busy doing these type of things. And today, unfortunately, we find Muslim men or Muslim people will find it, something below their dignity to be able to do domestic chores or do domestic work. When the Khalifa of the time, Umar ibn Abdul Aziz rahmatullah alayhi, was doing it, Hazrat Aisha radiallahu ta'ala says, she was asked one day, what did Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam do at home? Said Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to do normal chores at home. He used to clean the house, he used to sometimes fix up his clothes and sew his clothes, subhanallah. So he came and he said, I came to complain. And what was the complaint? Your ruler and your conqueror came to conquer our land against not our norm, your norms. According to your teachings, you are supposed to give people the option before you invade the land. Accept Islam, agree to live under the beautiful justice of Islam before you come in to conquer a land. Muslim bin Qutayba conquered our land without giving us sufficient notice, without giving us the options. Umar bin Abdul Aziz rahmatullah alayhi ruled. There is a learned person in that region, let him arbitrate on the matter, and whatever he says, Muslim bin Qutayba must agree upon it. The conqueror must agree. The alim of the town, the alim of the region, heard about it, heard they complain and said, Muslims have come and conquered this land against the teachings of Islam and they must vacate the place. Muslims were leaving the place after conquering it. And when the non-Muslims inhabitants saw this, they came to plead and said, we have never seen such a display of justice. Please come back and rule over us. It is this type of justice that made Muslims flourish and remain in custody in many parts of the world. And this was the beginning of Islam, the spiritual with Quthum bin Abbas and Sayyid ibn Uthman radiallahu ta'ala anhu, and many great companions and many great personalities came into this land thereafter. And we will look into this next slide. Look at this remarkable thing. We start off with Quthum bin Abbas, the closest person. In the next slides, you will see the qabr of Quthum bin Abbas, which alhamdulillah, for various reasons, part of the love that people had manifested towards him, that they have made it into a most beautiful mausoleum and they have decorated it and embellished it with most beautiful Islamic architecture. He remains the most important Muslim personality in this region. And many people might not be aware. Quthum bin Abbas was amongst those who lowered the body of our beloved Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in the qabr. And it's also a very common thing that many a times we find that when the people lower, the elderly people come up first and the younger person remains in the qabr. Quthum bin Abbas was the last person of this ummah to touch the body of our beloved Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And he is buried in Samarkand, thousands of kilometers away from Makkah and Medina. It tells you greatly about the inspiration, the thought pattern of Muslims of that time, their desire and the enthusiasm to propagate and bring Islam to the peoples of the world, which we believe is the truth. So this is Quthum bin Abbas. Imam Bukhari rahmatullah alayhi, what can we say about Imam Bukhari? We will go on to speak about him when we come to see his place where he taught and where he lays buried. Imam Abdul Rahman al-Tirmidhi, just keep in mind that this is a region. In Islamic terminology, it is known as Ma Wara'un Nahar, beyond the rivers. Between the Jaymun and Saymun rivers, I think that it is. Between those rivers is the place which is known as Ma Wara'un Nahar. And some people have said beyond the Oxus River. Now, it has remained a cradle of Islamic knowledge, especially with regard to the Hanafi fiqh. So, for example, Sahib Hidayah comes in from this region. And this, respected viewers, just consider this. 4 of the 6 most authentic books of hadith, the compilers of those come from this region. Imam Bukhari, he comes from Bukhara. Right? So Imam Muslim comes from Nishapur, which is in neighboring Iran. Imam Abu Dawood as-Sijistani comes from Sijistan, which is in Afghanistan. And Imam Isa bin Abdul Rahman comes from Tirmidh, which is on the border of present-day Uzbekistan and Afghanistan. This is the region. What does it teach us? It teaches us, and of course, we're not only talking about the aspect of seeing what was in that land, the beautiful landscape, the beautiful buildings, the beautiful masajid, the most beautiful, aesthetically pleasing architecture, Islamic architecture, as you will go on to see. But it tells you that Islam does not belong to any geographical location. It doesn't belong to any ethnic group or race. Whoever wants to take it can benefit. Ya Allah, hadith, the most important books of a hadith, the most important compilation of a hadith comes from people who have come from this region, which are thousands of kilometers away from Makkah and Medina. Even today, this serves as a lesson for people irrespective of your geographical location, irrespective of your ethnic group. You can still make a massive contribution to the truth and to Islam, as was done by the people of this region. It is narrated in a hadith that Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam one day was sitting with Salman Farsi radiallahu ta'ala, who comes from Persia, and this is part of that same region. And he said, even if Deen was in the faraway constellation of stars known as Thuraya, people from his background will go and search for the knowledge of Deen. And how true was this prophecy of our beloved Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam? We find that Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayhi, the famous jurist, the famous muhaddithin, famous Sufi scholars, if they came from this region. And amongst them we will say, Abu Mansur Maturidi. Abu Mansur Maturidi is the one who is known as the Imam of Aqidah, the Imam of our creed and our beliefs. People like Khwaja Ubaidullah Ahrar, who was a Sufi with a difference. Sufis are known many a times with regard to, they austere living, the simple living. Khwaja Ubaidullah Ahrar rahmatullah alayhi was the opposite of that. He was a Sufi saint where many of scholars and many people and disciples came to him. But he was amongst those who had a life of apparent great luxury and comfort. And there were reasons which he had given, which I don't have the time in this presentation to say. He was amongst that his horses and his conveyances used to be anchored with gold pegs. And Allah Ta'ala had granted him great amount of, wealth. And he had a whole retinue of servants, etc. But of course, a very great person in terms of tasawwuf and Sufism. People like Bayazid Bustami, who comes from a village known as Bustan between Bukhara and Samarkand. I like to narrate this one very interesting incident. Bayazid Bustami rahmatullah alayhi, father passed away. Mother was looking after him. She had great concern. Will I be able to fulfill the responsibility of bringing up this son of mine? And she wanted him to become a Dini scholar, a scholar of Deen. So she took him to one of the great scholars of the region and said, I am leaving my son as an amanat to you, look after him. Send him back after he has completed his studies. One day he had some free time and he went to go and visit his mother. He knocked at the door and the mother said, who is it? And he said, Bayazid. Expecting the mother to be very keen and happy to see him, the mother instead replied and said, which Bayazid? I don't know any Bayazid. The Bayazid I know. I sent him to study and I told him not to come back until he has completed his studies. I don't know any Bayazid. I'm not opening the door. He got the message, went back, and he only returned after he completed his studies. This is Bayazid Bustami, the role of his mother in his knowledge and him becoming such a great person. Bahauddin Naqshbandi rahmatullah alayh, we will see the pictures of his tombs that are there, that is in his khanka, in his retreat. And he was one of the scholars of the 4 imams of the Sufi school of thoughts. We have 4 schools of thought in fiqh. We also have 4 schools of thought in Sufism. Faqih Abul Lays Samarkandi, his kitab Tanbihul Ghafilin, Admonition for the Neglectful. Very famous book which has been the means of reformation of thousands of people, which has also been translated in the English language. Abdul Khaliq Hajwani, Abu Hafs Saghir, Abu Hafs Kabir, Shamsul Aimma Sarakhsi, Abu Bakr Kaffal Shashi, Ibn Sina, Khwarazmi, people who are not only known for their religious scholarship. Ibn Sina was known for his expertise in medicine, Khwarazmi his expertise in chemistry. These were the people who came from this region. And when we go into, the doorway with regard to Uzbekistan is Tashkent. That is the international airport. It is a present-day capital. And the word Tash means stone and Kant means city. So it means Tashkent, the stone city. It has been a very historical city from the ancient times and also recent times. Anyone who knows a little bit with regard to politics would know that in 1965 there was a discussion and negotiations between India and Pakistan, which was chaired by the then Soviet Union ruler. So Tashkent, and also I interestingly to read, it was also the place of Shirin and Farhad. Shirin and Farhad were figures that were known for their love and romance. The way you have Romeo and Julia and you had Layla and Majnun. In the Persian folklore, you had Shirin and Farhad. They came from this place of Tashkent. So this place has some historical significance. Presently in the city, there are few most beautiful masajid, and we perform Jummah in one of these masjids. As we will go on to make mention with regard to it, you will see some of the pictures. And there's a realization. Even today, previously the regime did not allow people to come in. They didn't allow Muslims to come in. There was a very strict procedure. Many Muslims are not allowed. Now the present regime has allowed Muslims to come in. There have been much more relaxation with regard to coming in. And they have also promoted the aspect of heritage and historical tours. So there is this aspect of allowing and, actually encouraging people to come see the history and the legacy that is within this country. And you can see for it, you will see in this clip, you have the great scholars of hadith, which is in one of the masjids in Tashkent, which is displayed to show that this particular region is a region in which there is such a great scholarship of people who have compiled the sayings of our beloved Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So, and although you will see that there are certain etiquettes that are made mention in the masajid, which leads people towards this. This is one of the present day masjid. It's not a historical masjid, but it is a masjid that is contemporary. Most beautiful masjid. Alhamdulillah, what we did was when we took the group, alhamdulillah, there were over 40 people with us in this group. In this masjid, we did a lesson from the Sahih Bukhari. Alhamdulillah, we took one lesson and because this place and this region is also very famous for Imam Bukhari rahmatullah alayh. As we will go on in this particular masjid, we did a lesson from amongst the chapters of Imam Bukhari rahmatullah alayh. So this was the most beautiful, aesthetically pleasing architecture that you see present in present day Tashkent. So this is, a very unique way with regard to the preservation of the Islamic history that is in this land and region. One of the great things with regard to Tashkent is the museum. In the museum, you have most beautiful copies of the Holy Quran which has been written. And the most important of that was the Mushaf Uthmani. The Mushaf Uthmani, there's a whole writing with regard to how this Mushaf had come down to Tashkent and why it is preserved in Tashkent. We know that when we look at the history of the compilation of the Quran, in the time of our beloved Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, there was no one single printed version or one compiled version of the Holy Quran which was in one printed form. In the time of Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu, in one battle, many Muslims and many Huffaz lost their life in a battle. They were shaheed. Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu had a concern. And he came and he told Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, O Amir al-Mu'minin, O Khalifa of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I'm worried that the Quran might become lost by the amount of huffaz that had been martyred. Let us put all the remnants of the Quran. At that time it was preserved in different books, parchments of leather, on camel bones it was written. And as you went along, you found that people had written it. So he convinced Abu Bakr on the need to put it in one single book form, compile it in the Mus'haf. At that particular time, we found that it was done in the time of Abu Bakr. Then in the time of Uthman radiallahu anhu, just a brief explanation. Then it was, in initial stages, Quran was revealed in different dialects. Unzil al-Quran ala sab'atu ahrufin. And Allah Ta'ala allowed people to read the Quran according to their dialects because they were so used to their dialects. But in the time of Uthman radiallahu anhu, Hazrat Huzaifa radiallahu anhu, the Sahabi came to Uthman and said, Amir al-Mu'minin, I'm worried. People are starting to create these dialects, were allowed for a specific reason, but now it is becoming a point of contention and a point of disagreement and a point of ikhtilaf. We need to bring the Quran under one particular dialect, the dialect of the Quraysh. And at that particular time, Uthman radiallahu anhu compiled the Quran in the dialect of Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Quraysh made 7 copies and sent it out to the different capital cities of the Muslim world. One of those copies has been preserved in the Tashkent Museum. And this was one of, the highlights with regard to the trip, to be able to see that. And in fact, some reports also say that which is in Tashkent Museum was the same copy that was with Uthman radiallahu anhu, and he was reading it when he was martyred. There is a blot of blood that is reported to be the blood of Uthman radiallahu anhu on the verse, فَسَيَكْفِيكَهُمُ Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is sufficient for you. So this is, Tashkent. Then of course there's also the grave of Kafal Shashi, that he is the most well-known site in Tashkent. And amazingly, Kafal Shashi is a Shafi jurist in a land predominantly of Hanafi scholars and people who follow the Hanafi school of thought. I must relate one small thing, is that when we went for Jummah in Tashkent, we found it very amazing. 60 to 70% of the people who were in the masjid were young people. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it that those young people become the torch bearers of Islam in that region. And why shouldn't it be so? Why shouldn't we have that type of enthusiasm? Why shouldn't we have that type of hope? After all, this was a region in which such great scholars, some of which I have made mention of, come from this particular region. And inshallah, one day it will become a place, once again, of Islamic scholarship and Islamic civilization the way it was in the past. Obviously, there was a dark period at the time of communism when Islam was outlawed and was not allowed to be practiced freely. May Allah Ta'ala make it such that once again it regains its glory. And when you saw the youngsters in the time of, Jummah, it was very pleasing to see that sight. What amazing thing that, an experience I saw was after Jummah. Now we find in many parts of the world, I'm not laying blame with regard to anyone. Maybe there are people who have work, many people, in a hurry to go. In every Jummah where you see a substantial percentage of the people leave the masjid after Jummah. In Tashkent, I wouldn't be wrong, and people who were in my group would testify to this. 99%, if not 100% of the people remain after Jummah to complete their Sunnah prayers. No one just ran out of the masjid after Jummah. Everyone stood. It was quite a remarkable experience for us. So anyway, after Tashkent, we went to the city of Samarkand. Samarkand is very old. It is as old as Rome. Over 3,500 years of history. Known as the Cradle of Civilization. It is also noted for its Islamic center for scholarly study. Ibn Battuta visited the place in 1333, and he said one of the greatest and finest cities that he ever had to travel. And talking about travel, we also know this, that Muslim travelers have, written about their travels, and their travel books and travelogues have become very important pieces of knowledge, and people have benefited from it in terms of knowledge, in terms of experience, in terms of curiosity and interest. Ibn Jubair rahmatullah alayhi, in the 8th century of Islamic history, 8th or 9th century, took a trip for Hajj from Andalus, came to Mecca via North Africa, and then came across the Red Sea. After that, went to Syria, and then went away, and he had written his books known as the Travels of Ibn Jubair, which has been translated into English. Ibn Battuta's books have been very well catalogued and very well translated, and it is widely available. And because of which we come to know about the halat, and we come to know about the conditions of the people of that era, and we also learn very valuable lessons. Now, in this whole particular aspect of Samarkand, one of the most important things is the grave of Quthum bin Abbas, the cousin of our beloved Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, brother of Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu. It was amazing to see that particular, he is known, where he is buried, is known as the mausoleum of Shah Zinda. What does it mean? He was martyred. And because he was martyred, a person who is martyred in Islam, he does not die according to the Quranic verse. وَلَا تَقُولُوا لِمَنْ يُقْتَلُ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ أَمْوَاتٍ. Do not call those who are killed in the path of Almighty Allah as dead. They are alive, but you can't perceive their life. So he was martyred on the eve of on Eid al-Adha, right? So his mausoleum is known as the mausoleum of Shah Zinda, the martyrdom of the living person. And it is very well. And in there is this particular saying of our beloved Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Subhanallah. How fortunate are those people. Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, Quthum bin Abbas more than any other person resembles me in character and appearance. Ya Allah. Quthum bin Abbas, the cousin of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, about whom Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, he resembles me in character and in appearance. He is buried in Samarkand, far away Samarkand, the cousin of our beloved Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And in this picture, you will see the most beautiful architecture, aesthetically pleasing. The blue tiles are just so amazing to see. And that is why many tourist brochures you find invitation towards the Azure tours. Because you will see this overriding blue in its various shades, not only in the mausoleum of Quthum bin Abbas, but in other places in Samarkand and in Bukhara. So this was the place. Together with the qabr of Quthum bin Abbas, there are many other qabrs that are in the small niches leading up to the qabr of Quthum bin Abbas. And it is said that there are different types of saintly people, and there are the family of Amir Timur who are buried in this particular place. And it is also said that the great saint Khwaja Ubaidullah Ahrar, I read somewhere that he is also buried in this. So this is what you find in this mausoleum. There was one beautiful saying, "Ajjilu bis-salati qabla al-fawt, wa ajjilu bit-tawbati qabla al-maut." Hasten towards your salat when the time comes for salat before the time elapses, and hasten towards repentance before your death. Subhanallah. It was so beautifully carved, and I think you will find a picture of that. And this was, the place of Quthum bin Abbas radiyallahu ta'ala. It was our fortune to be in that particular place where such a great cousin of our beloved Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, family of our beloved Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, had traveled so far for the sake of propagating the deen. When you look at the history of Samarkand, Bukhara, there comes a time when after the initial establishment of Islam came Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan. We all know that Genghis Khan was a great conqueror, and who had come and he had wrought great amount of devastation to the Islamic lands. And amongst the places where he had brought great amount of destruction and death was Bukhara and Samarkand. In fact, many people believe that way he started off his conquering from that particular region. He conquered Bukhara, Samarkand, went into Iran, completely destroyed Iran, and then completely went towards Baghdad. And of course, Baghdad, we know, he killed the Abbasid Khalifa of the time, and he killed 1.6 million Muslims. Why it happened, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows. If you read the history, there's an amazing history with regard to why Genghis Khan did what he had done. He had sent an envoy with good intention towards the Abbasid Khalifa, who had killed the envoy against all international norms. And, Muslims are supposed to abide by international norms. You are never allowed to kill an envoy. You will recall that someone had the Persian Empire at that time had sent someone to kill Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, despite knowing it, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam did not touch him and said, had it not been for international norms, I would perhaps have taken your life. But it is against international norm to kill envoys. The Abbasid Khalifa killed him, and he had gone on to a marauding revenge with regard to what had happened. And he had destroyed the cities of Bukhara and Samarkand. I will come to one slide as we go along when we come to Bukhara, which is known as the Minara of Death. Why it is known as the Minara of Death? Because of Genghis Khan, because of Genghis Khan, but we will come there. After Genghis Khan had completely destroyed the cities of Bukhara and Samarkand, came a ruler known as Amir Timur. And because he had brought about great amount of civilization, restored these cities back to its original greatness, he is very greatly revered. So you see images of Amir Timur in the capital city of Tashkent, and his mausoleum and grave has been preserved as we see in these slides and in these pictures. Here you will find, as you just go in and you can see it, is his different conquests. He had a conquest which was from Istanbul to Delhi. You can imagine, from Istanbul and Delhi, he brought that. Then Bukhara and Samarkand, the Central Asian republics. And he also undertook, as you will see in the picture, and you will see that he had a situation where he even traveled towards China, and he conquered certain areas of China, and that is why you see the Muslim presence up till now in China, something that we sometimes don't realize where the background was. So Amir Timur very greatly revered in those particular regions because he brought Islam back to its right. Here you find his mausoleum. What I found very interesting was here is that on his qabr was inscribed Suratul Mulk, and you found Tabarakalladhi biyadihil mulk on that. And of course, I started thinking, why would someone inscribe Suratul Mulk? Then you realize of the hadith of our beloved Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam had said, whoever wants that he must be saved from the adhab of the qabr, then let him read Suratul Mulk after Maghrib or after Isha at night. And that is the reason why you find even people who were kings, they also had the fear of adhab of qabr. What I found very interesting was that on his qabr was inscribed Suratul Mulk. And then after a little bit of reflection, I thought that yes, it is the most, appropriate, and that is the reason why perhaps they had inscribed Suratul Mulk, because Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam had said, whoever wishes to save himself from the adhab of the qabr, let him recite Suratul Mulk during the evenings. So in this way, around his qabr, despite being the king, everyone has to go through the qabr. And no matter what your wealth, you have to go through the qabr. And it is something that gives us great amount of apprehension and fear. And if it does give you apprehension and fear, and you want to save yourself, then get into the habit of reciting Suratul Mulk every night, so that inshallah, through that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can save us from the adhab of the qabr. So this was the place of... then one of the most amazing things that we saw in Samarkand was the educational institutes of Samarkand. There is no doubt in my mind, the amount of importance and emphasis you place on education tells you a great deal with regard to the civilization and with regard to the future of any country. Unfortunately, we have to say, in the last 100, 200 years, Muslims have fallen back with regard to education. And we have left a vacuum which other nations and other countries have fulfilled. And they have, because of that, progressed. And I do not believe that there is a dichotomy between education in terms of, yes, there will always be the superiority of Islamic education, the superiority of Quran and Hadith, which will form the framework with regard to which all other educations must be learned. But Islam has never made this dichotomy and said that other branches of knowledge are not important. Imam Ghazali rahmatullah alayhi had said that there are two types of knowledge. One is farz-e-ayn, farz upon each and every individual for him to know what Allah Ta'ala requires from him. And one is known as farz-e-kifaya. And he defines farz-e-kifaya, any branch of knowledge which is indispensable for the welfare of mankind. It is farz-e-kifaya for the Muslim ummah to acquire it. And then he goes on to write in his Ihya, kat-tibbi wal-hisab, like medicine and accounting. He has not only referred to it as something that is permissible, not prohibited, he has said it is farz-e-kifaya. And the great civilizations of the Muslims in the past were amongst those who were in the forefront with regard to all branches of knowledge. And in fact, you will find that Mufti Taqi Usmani, the great scholar, when he speaks about an ideal Islamic education, he speaks about the Zaytuna Institute and the Qarawin Institute in North Africa, amongst the very first universities that were established. And he speaks about the fact that in those particular educational institutes, you had a situation where great scholars were teaching tafsir, like Qazi Ayyaz Rahmatullah alayh was teaching Quran and Hadith. And in the very same institute, under the very same roof, were people like Ibn Rushd, Averroes, that were teaching what we today know as worldly sciences. In the very same institute, with the very same objective of pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, their appearance and their objective and their niyyah was one, the establishment of the word of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is perhaps what we learn. In this, you will find this most beautiful. In one of the mimbars that is there, we were told by the guides there are something like 30 kilos of gold. This was the educational institutes of the time in Samarkand. Just look at this most beautiful, aesthetically pleasing, structures. These were the educational institutes of the time. Here is one of it. One of the very amazing things is on outside, there was an image that depicted a tiger attacking a deer. We couldn't, still up till now, I've been trying to read quite a bit that what exactly was the reason why this was depicted on the doorway of an educational institute. There were 3 educational institutes in one square known as the Registan Square. One was a Darul Ulum, and in there you will see a double-story type of building. We were told that the top of it was, the residence, and below was the classrooms. Subhanallah, just look at this beauty with regard to the educational institutes of the time. Then together with that, this is also one of the pictures with regard to the educational institutes. Then together with it, one was a Darul Ulum, which was teaching Quran and Hadith. One was a famous, what we'll term today as a university. And one was an Ulugh Beg observatory, a science observatory. Now, Ulugh Beg was the son of Amir Timur. He was a scientist of note. He, at his time, maybe we would be correct in saying he was way up here, ahead of his time. He had determined where the equator was. He had determined a way of determining zawal. In fact, he was so advanced with regard to his observations and discoveries of the time that people found it to be blasphemous. And in fact, it is narrated and reported that one of the other sons of Amir Timur, whether because of the fact that they found his observation at that time blasphemous, or they found it to be something that was extraordinary, or they couldn't understand, he was actually killed. So here was Ulugh Beg, where his observatory was. But for a great amount of time, he had taught science in that particular observatory in Samarkand. Then, of course, we come to one of the great scholars that is buried in there, many other great scholars. One of the scholars that we had the opportunity to go to visit his retreat, his khanqa as it is known, or his place, is that of Imam Bahauddin Naqshbandi Rahmatullah alayh. The Naqshbandi school of thought in terms of Sufism is one of the very great Sufi schools of thought. And they are amongst those who make silent zikr. And there are many great scholars who had followed that Naqshbandi school of thought. And in Samarkand is the mausoleum of Imam Bahauddin Naqshbandi Rahmatullah alayh. Here are some of the pictures with regard to it. And then buried in Samarkand is Imam Bukhari Rahmatullah alayh. Let me briefly give you some, I don't have the time to go into a very elaborate explanation. Imam Bukhari Rahmatullah alayh was one of the great sons of Islam, one of the great scholars of Islam. It is unanimously accepted by the ulama. He has compiled a kitab known as Asahul Kutubi Ba'da Kitabillah, the most authentic book in our religion after the kitab of Almighty Allah. It is absolutely amazing. How do you explain that a person from Persian descent and a person whose great-grandfathers were people who were fire worshippers, who were not Muslim, and from that particular descent and lineage comes a person who is universally accepted not only by Persians, people from the Indo-Pak subcontinent, by Arabs. And of course, Arabs have a liking for Bukhari that we can't explain. But that is from what? From a person who was not an Arab, who was a Persian, and whose forefathers was people who did not believe, and who are those who are fire worshippers. What a great lesson it tells us, that Allah Ta'ala, there is no barrier for you to achieve whatever you want to achieve, irrespective of your background, irrespective of your race, irrespective of your geographical location. Imam Bukhari rahmatullah alayhi, was born. In his earlier years, he was blind. Mother used to make dua one day, and never underestimate the dua of your mother. And the mothers must never underestimate the duas that they can make for their children. Mother continuously made dua. One day she saw Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam in a dream, giving her glad tidings that the son's eyes and his sight has been restored. The eyesight has been restored. She got up and he was restored. And he had a passion for memorizing the hadith of our beloved Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam from an early age. At the age of 11, he corrected his ustad who was teaching hadith in Bukhara and said that you had made one chain of narrators which was wrong. The ustad went back and he acknowledged. Then he gave him special preference because of his talent. Imam Bukhari rahmatullah alayhi, at the age of 16, went for Hajj. And thereafter, he stayed 2-3 years to go and learn. At the age of 17, he wrote his first book. And then it took him 17 years to compile the hadith of our beloved Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Out of 300,000 hadith, out of 300,000, he collected a specific amount. And if you take away the repetitions in terms of the text of the hadith, there is something like 2,600, somewhere around that, of hadith which has been in Sahih Bukhari. And it is said that he compiled the Sahih in the Haramain. He used to make tawaf when he was in Makkah, read 2 rakats of istikhara, make 2 rakats of namaz, and then include every hadith in the Sahih. And that is the reason why, because of his effort, and he had traveled, he had over 1,080 ustads. He traveled at that time when it was not so easy to travel, over 14,000 kilometers. And this was Imam Bukhari rahmatullah alayhi. He went to Baghdad once, and a very small incident. And when he went to Baghdad, the people, at that time also you had people who wanted to test the scholarship and the knowledge of the ulama. So they had 10 people narrating 10 hadith. So they came and they started narrating the 10 hadith. But what they had done was they changed the chain of narrators of every hadith and every saying of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. They mixed up the chain of narrators. And after every hadith, Imam Bukhari rahmatullah alayhi said, La adri, I don't know this hadith. So initially, the people who did not know about the chain of narrators, the scholars who were aware, the awam and the common people, they were sort of taken aback that this man whom we have come to hear about and heard so much about his fame of hadith, he is saying about well-known hadith that I don't know. And then when they had completed, 10 people had completed the 10 sayings of each one narrated 10 hadith. Imam Bukhari rahmatullah alayhi said, the first person, he said this hadith with this chain of narrators. After listening to it once, he narrated the wrong way in which that person had said the hadith with that chain of narrators. He said, I don't know that hadith because the chain of narrators, the correct chain of narrators is this. And he then went on to make mention of that entire 100 hadith, making mention of the wrong way that they had said it, and then substituting it with the right way. This was Imam Bukhari rahmatullah alayhi. Allah Ta'ala had given him such great acceptance, as I have said throughout history. People have said, it is said about one of the great scholars, Imam Muslim rahmatullah alayhi. One day he saw Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in a dream, and Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, "Oh Imam Muslim, you are reading other books. Why didn't you read my book?" So Imam Muslim asked Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in a dream, "Ya Rasulullah, what is your book?" Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam referred him to Sahih Bukhari and said, "Read the Sahih of Imam Muhammad bin Ismail al-Bukhari. That is my book." Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam referred to it as my book. And there is no doubt that it remains amongst the scholars of Islam as As-Sahul Kutubi Ba'da Kitabillah, the most authentic book after the Kitab of Almighty Allah. And here was the qabr of Imam Bukhari rahmatullah alayhi. There is an outside facade with regard to it. This is the outside. And then underneath that is the actual qabr of our Imam Bukhari rahmatullah alayhi. Now, we know with regard to what our limitations are in going to qabrs. We never go to qabrs with the intention of worshipping. But of course, we also send salutations to the inmate and we thank him on behalf of the ummah with regard to his contribution, and we make dua for his forgiveness and elevation of his status. one cannot explain the feeling that you had when you go into the qabr, especially for people who had maybe not been proper students of deen, but had some relationship with ilm. When we went there, it was an amazing feeling that when you went in front of the qabr of Imam Bukhari, thinking about those days when the teaching of Imam Bukhari's Sahih and the learning of it culminated your formal studies. So this was one of the very, remarkable aspects. Then, of course, we went to the city of Bukhara. Bukhara, again, is one of the very great cities that is there. Here is a very interesting slide which speaks about the travels of Imam Bukhari, rahmatullah alayhi. When he first went from Bukhara to Makkah, Medina, and then came back to Bukhara, and then made us, again, a travel to Nishapur, Baghdad, Kufa, Basra, Damascus, Jerusalem, Fustat, modern-day Cairo, Medina, Makkah, and then went back again. And then when he went to Bukhara, back again to Bukhara, the leader of the Amir of Bukhara told him to come teach his son in the palace. Imam Bukhari rahmatullah said, no, I will not demean knowledge by teaching your son in the palace. If he wants to come and learn, let him come and learn by my institute. I'm not going to come to the palace. In that particular way, Imam Bukhari rahmatullah after that, he was forced out in exile by the leader of Bukhara. That's why he came to Samarkand. So although he grew up in Bukhara, you will find that his qabr is in Samarkand, and there is a distance of about 200-300 kilometers between Bukhara and Samarkand. Now this is a place, a very remarkable place. You see the beauty with regard to it. Is the educational institute which is said to be the place where Imam Bukhari rahmatullah alayhi studied and he later on taught. There's an amazing serenity with regard to that place. Here are just two examples with regard to it. There's just an amazing, there's a fragrance of knowledge when you walk around that place. It is known as Masjid al-Kalan. And there is presently an educational institute where hadith is being taught just nearby this place, which is part and parcel of the entire complex. As I made mention previously about the aspect of the Minara of Death, it is said when Genghis Khan came to this place, when Genghis Khan came to this place, he found the Imam was reading Fajr Salat. So he chopped off the head of the Imam while he was reading Fajr Salat. The next person went onto the Musalla. His head also was chopped. And it is said that 14 Imams' heads were chopped before the Fajr Namaz of that day came to an end. And that is why this Minara is known as the Minara of Death. And what is amazing is when you go nearby, you see ayats of the Holy Quran on that minara, which speaks about tribulation. So you will find repeatedly inscribed on that minara, Ma asaba min musibatin illa bi'idhnillah. Whatever calamity comes upon you comes from Almighty Allah. With the permission of Allah. Allah knows why those trials came upon the people of this place. So therefore, this is known as a place of, the place where Imam Bukhari rahmatullah alayhi taught. And this is the place with regard to where Imam Bukhari rahmatullah alayhi studied and he grew up. And of course, it is a very inspirational place. This is the madrasa of Imam Bukhari rahmatullah alayhi, which is also, very beautifully. There's other madrasas also. There's a place which is known as Koladosh Madrasa, which is right in the present is right in the center of the CBD. It was once upon a time a thriving educational institute. At the moment, it is being used as a tourist attraction, and people sell tourist souvenirs in that place, which was once upon a place known as the Kaladosh Madrasa. And this was, of course, we also know that Bukhari is also known for Bukhari Plow. I made mention with regard to it, and I made a small clip while I was there. People, wherever I go, when people remember that clip more than any other clip that I had made there of any other historical site. And one person, very interestingly told me, Moulana, I never knew that Bukhari Plow came from Bukhara. I always thought that you cook Bukhari Plow after a Bukhari Khatam. Subhanallah. Anyway, this was the place. You asked certain situations with regard to modern day Bukhara. I found it very interesting that there was an image of someone. So I said, who is this image? And on there was written Mullah Nasiruddin. Now, Mullah Nasiruddin is known to be someone, when you speak about jokes or you speak about inspirational lessons, somewhat humorously also, Mullah Nasiruddin is used. I asked, why would there be an image of Mullah Nasiruddin? Now, I'm not talking about the aspect with regard to whether Mullah Nasiruddin or the images are correct or not, but just to say that there was this whole particular, and I said, there are very valuable lessons in his life which has been there. So these are some of the aspects that we have seen. Many, many great lessons that we can take off. One of the great lessons is Allah Ta'ala has used different people for the preservation and for the service of deen. And we don't know whom Allah will use. Allah can use even today different people. Allah has left this door open for people. What a great inspiration and motivation is for people. You can be whatever you want. You can be in whatever geographical location. Allah Ta'ala reward these people. Really, it is no insignificant contribution and effort that they have done. The muhaddithin, they have done tremendous amount of, great amount of lessons with the intention of preserving the deed. Ali bin Madini, rahmatullah alayh, it is made mention with regard to Ali bin Madini. One day someone came and asked him, he was the ustad of Imam Bukhari, rahmatullah alayh, can we narrate from your father? He didn't reply. And then eventually when someone forced him, you have to give us a reply. He said, don't narrate from my father. I have seen my father sometimes at home saying things that were not true. The integrity of the muhaddithin in preserving the deen. Allah has preserved this deen through various personalities in the history of Islam. Because it has been preserved, it is still an inspiration and motivation. So today, a person can go to Quran, can see the Quran and see the hadith. It is the very same Quran that was revealed upon our beloved Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. The hadith contains the very same sayings of our beloved Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. I say we know more about Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam than we know about any other person. No one knows how many white hairs and strands of white hair there is in the beard of his or even his parents. But we know, because the Sahabah told us, and it is preserved in the books of hadith, that there were 17 strands of white hair on the beard of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam just prior to his passing on. There are 54 chapters in Shama'il al-Tirmidhi which only speaks about the habits of our beloved Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, how he ate, how he slept. All of this has been preserved. It has been preserved. Why? Because of the love Muslim Ummah had for our beloved Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. The responsibility that they took in preserving it. Because it has been preserved, it is still a motivation. We send salutations and we say Jazakallahu ta'ala wa an sa'ir al-ummati khair al-jaza. Jazakallah for all of these great personalities which are buried in places like Uzbekistan, in Bukhara, Samarkand, Tashkent, and other parts of the Islamic world. We say Jazakallah to you for your preserving the deen and playing your part. You have played your part. Now it is up to us to preserve and to take that Islam which Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has left as an amanat for us, to take it to the next level. These were some of the observations and some of the lessons that we learned from this small trip to Bukhara, Samarkand and Tashkent. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq of learning from these lessons and applying it in our life. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.